Hello again. Today we are going to work on another type of finite clause, which is the relative or adjective clause. For that reason, during this video, we are going to explain the definition and function of relative clauses, position within a sentence, the difference between restrictive and non-restrictive adjective clauses, and related to that, punctuation. Let's recall that last video we defined what the finite clause is. And apart from that, we worked on nominal clauses, definition, types, and so on. That's the reason why today we are going to focus on adjective or relative clauses. Let's also recall that when you need to give extra descriptive information about a noun, you can add modifiers such as adjectives, prepositional phrases, and noun modifiers. As a modifier, you can also use a relative clause, which is a dependent clause that begins with a relative pronoun, such as who, which, that, whom, whose. A relative clause gives extra information about a noun in the main clause to describe, to define, or to identify it. The relative pronoun, as I told you before, such as who, whom, whose, which, or that, can be either the subject of the clause or maybe the object of the clause. Let's analyze the following two examples to see the differences. So the first one reads, that's the woman who or that bought my car. So something that is important to mention is that the woman is the subject and bought my car is the object. On the other hand, in the second example in which the object of the clause is a relative pronoun, we are going to analyze this example, which reads, that's the car which that I used to own. I is the subject and used to own the car, who used to own the car, which is the object, so the car is the object. So something that is important to mention, in this case, we are using who because we are referring to the woman, a person in this case, and in this case, as we are referring to an object, we use which. But another thing that is important to mention is that the relative pronoun here can't be omitted, so I can't say that's the woman bought my car. But related to the second example, we can omit, if we want, which or that, so I can say that's the car I used to own, and we can omit again the relative pronoun. So last but not least, let's focus on the position of the relative clause. So as you can see here in these two examples, this relative clause is placed immediately after the noun it modifies. So in this case, it is modifying the car, this clause is modifying the car, and in this case, this clause is modifying the woman, which is the noun too. Another important classification is the difference between defining and non-defining relative clauses. Something important to mention that we can, depending on the author, we can find defining and non-defining, or on the other hand, restrictive and non-restrictive relative clauses, adjective clauses. So they are the same, different names, but the same concept. So let's start by the first one, that is to say defining or restrictive adjective clauses. As it reads here, they give important information which tell us exactly what is being referred to. So let's analyze the example. That book which you lent me is really good. So that book which you lent me is really good. This indicates which book we are talking about. Without a relative clause, it might be difficult to understand the meaning. So, a restrictive adjective clause gives essential information about the noun it modifies. That is, the information is necessary for the reader or for the listener to identify the noun. Without this information, the reader or the listener doesn't know which noun of all the possible nouns in a group the writer or the speaker is referring to. On the other hand, the non-defining or non-restrictive adjective clauses add extra information. And it's important here to focus on punctuation, because in this case they are separated by commas in writing or by a pause in speaking. So in the second example, let's consider this. The book, which I hadn't read, was still on the shelf. So this gives extra information about the book. We could miss out the relative clause and the meaning would still be clear. So, in other words, a non-restrictive adjective clause adds extra non-essential information about the noun it modifies. So the reader or the listener doesn't need this information to identify the noun being referred to. Well, now let's concentrate on relative pronouns. As we saw previously, who or that are used to refer to people. Which or that are used to refer to objects, animals, or maybe I can use it to or them to refer back to a whole clause. And let's see some examples. Well, for example, my brother lent me some money and this was generous of him. So in this case, there are two different sentences. So if I want to use a relative pronoun, I would say, my brother lent me some money, which was generous of him. So this which refers to the fact that he lent me some money. So that is to say that it refers back to the whole clause, not only to the object. For example, to the money. Whose? Well, the third one, whose. Whose is used instead of a possessive adjective. Let's revise that possessive adjectives are, for example, my, your, his, her. So they are used with people, objects, and animals to show possession. So, for example, I would say, that's the woman, and then her house is big. So in this case, again, there are two different sentences. But by using whose, I would say, that's the woman whose house is big. So I'm replacing her by whose. And in this case, there is only one sentence with a dependent clause and an independent one. And last but not least, whom. Well, whom, pay attention to this because whom is not so frequent and it's very formal. So it's the object form of who, and it has to be used after preposition. So in general, we are going to use who again. So I can say, this is the person who I sold my car to. But if I want to be more formal, I would say, this is the person to whom I sold my car. Finally, it's important to mention that can be used instead of who or which, as we saw. But careful, because it can't be used in non-defining clauses or non-restrictive clauses, and nor after a preposition. So I can say if I want, for example, this is the car that or which I paid 2,000 for. But I can't say, following this rule, this is a car for that I paid 2,000. So it's okay to be, this is grammatically wrong. I have to say, this is a car for which I paid 2,000 pounds. So again, this is quite formal and it's not very usual, but take that into consideration. And finally, let's talk about a little bit about relative adverbs. Well, careful with relative adverbs because maybe you may confuse it or you may confuse them with adverbial clauses. But again, take into consideration theory and it will be easy for you to understand it. So we are going to focus on where, when, and why. Let's focus on the examples and the function. Where is used to refer to place, usually after nouns like place, house, street, town, and country. Of course, it can be replaced by which or that plus a preposition. And in this case, which and that can be omitted if you want. So let's analyze it. For example, this is a place where I used to live. So in this case, where I used to live is modifying the word place. Place is a noun, so if you are modifying a noun, is a relative clause. It's functioning as an adjective. Let's analyze the second example, when. When is used to refer to time, usually after nouns like time, period, moment, day, summer, and so on. It can be either replaced by that or can be omitted. So you can say, I'll never forget the day when I first met him. So in this case, when I first met him, is modifying the day, not any day, but that day specifically. Or you can say, I never forget the day that, or you can omit this that, so it's okay too. And last, why is used to give reason, usually after the word reason. It is either be replaced by that or can be omitted, okay? So the reason why I'm explaining this topic is because I want you to learn it. So again, as you can see here, why is modifying reason. So not any reason, but the reason why I'm explaining this topic. So it's modifying a noun. So this is all. So I hope you have understood everything. And if you have any doubts, of course, you can write some comments. And see you on the next video. Bye.